Learning sponsors. Martin Lippman and family in memory of his wife, Malka Chanabak Pinchas. Friends of Herb Jeremiah, Svi Ben Zev. Friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel Ben Yaakov. Friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir. Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Ayal Ben Yosef Cohen. Those who were inspired by Rebbetzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Estamaka, but Mishum Yisachar, Gail and Leslie Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Mushka Shprinza Bad Yosef Chaim Bechava, Hanan Ben Moshe Eliezer Bechana, Pesha Bat Shmuel Yitzchak Levi Vitzipora, Isha Ben Yoel Moshe Cohen Bechana, Rexford Friends of Gladys Sherman, Gutta Bud Meir, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim, Marsha Bronner in memory of her husband, Rav Yerachmiel Ben Shmuel, friends and family of Arthur Ritholtz, Mordechai Yudel Ben Baruch Leib Cohen, friends and family of Siggy Bessler, Shalom Shraga Ben Dov, month of learning by Reuven and Susan Podolsky in memory of his father, his mother, Fredel Bad Shraga Feivel, Lee Pizer in memory of her sister Rivka Bad Avram Michal Halevi, Michael and Judith Poretsky in memory of his brother Avram Ben Gershon, week of learning Barbara Stern in memory of her father David Matka Ben Zev Vayeta. Today we have a day of learning by Anne and Lester Arfi in commemoration of the Shloshim of Rabbi Yosef Kane by Rabbi Dr. Moshe Kranzler in memory of his brother Chaim Shmuel Barevi Rachmiel and by Bruce Deutsch in memory of his mother Ella Bat Dov Wolf. And Shamas have an Aliyah, Crank Rafiel, Velti Shir Shematzliah, Open Israel.
Okay, I'm going to open with the Mishnah, then I'm going to give away the trick, the day's trick. It'll be easier. I'll do it before the Mishnah, it'll be easier after the Mishnah. Okay, let's look at the Mishnah first. We are, yes, where are we? Memtes Amud Beis, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 lines in the bottom where the Mishnah is. Okay, so I'll read the Mishnah, then I'll give away the trick. The Mishnah basically is identifying the bore, a pit, okay, that a person is responsible for an obstacle with its opening. A chofer bar b'shus, if a guy digs a pit, okay, in the private domain of pasul shisharabim, but he opens it up, he digs it so the entranceway is in the public domain, or alternatively, shisharabim pasul shishach, and he digs the actual pit is underneath the ground of the public domain. And the entranceway is in a private domain, but then the owner abandons the area around the opening, so that the opening is accessible to the public and people can fall in. Okay, b'rishus yachid, or anything can fall in. B'rishus yachid, or if a guy dug a pit in the private domain, and he made the opening into another private domain that he opens, and again he abandoned the ownership of the area around the entrance. Again, all the entrances are public access. The person is obligated. Now, please stick with me. I'm going to give away a trick. The next part would really be complicated unless you do what I'm doing. What I'm going to tell you now makes it easy. Sometimes you have to go over the trick a few times, but getting the trick is the trick. Okay, it's like this. There are two. You'll see in a second what I mean. There are two phrases. Yeah, that's 50. There are two phrases in the Torah that lead us in different directions. Okay, let's take a look at the psukim of bor in the Torah. I'm going to read for you. I have the pasuk in front of me. It says, "V'chi yiftach ish bor, o ki yichra ish bor." If a person will open a pit or will dig a pit, okay, lo yichaser, and he will not cover it. V'nafal shama shar chamar, and will fall into it a donkey, an ox or a donkey. Baal Hashor Yishalim, the Balabor Yishalim, the owner of the pit shall pay. Kesef Yoshiv Labal, he's going to return money to the owners. And the corpse will be his. Okay, but so there's two key phrases. One is the fact that it says when a person will open a pit or dig a pit, and the other one is the owner of the pit. Each one leads us in a different direction. What do I mean to say? On the one hand, if you say the Baal Habor, it sounds like the pit is owned by someone. Okay, not public domain, Baal Habor. So if you make the emphasis there, then certainly a pit in the ownership of someone is what the Torah is speaking about. It said Baal Habor, the owner of the pit. So the pit you're talking about is one that's owned by someone, not something that is that belongs to the community. On the other hand, if I look at this phrase, if a person will open a pit or dig a pit, okay, and not cover it, it's strange because everybody knows. I said, 1 second. If you told me if I merely uncover a pit, if I just took the cover off, I have to pay. Certainly, if I dug the darn thing, I barely did anything uncovered. If I certainly dug it, so it's a big problem. But why does the Torah have to tell me if I open it, I have to pay, and then tell me if I dig it, I have to pay? Certainly, if I dig it, I have to pay. The answer is coming to tell you, you know what? This one I could be saying what? I could be saying what? If you just open it or dig it, you own it, even if you don't own it. Like we said, like chametz on Pesach. This even that's what this thing, as far as we're concerned, you own it. As far as this we're concerned, you own it. Yeah. Years ago, many years ago, I had the privilege actually when it was unheard of. The Federation wouldn't have in those years wouldn't have nothing to do with religious people ever. It was forbidden. It was forbidden to do anything with religious people. I was a young guy, and all of a sudden, the Federation they liked us so much. They brought us in every Friday night. Their key groups that they brought from America. They just built it. It's not called it anymore. What was then the Hilton Hotel? It's not anymore. It's not the Hilton anymore. It's opposite the bus station. What was then the brand new Hilton Hotel? They brought us in every single week. You know, to run a program on Friday night for the Federation. So first, I loved it because they served duck. I mean, sugar. It's kosher. Yeah, I got duck. I got kosher duck. I was happy. Yes. So anyway, we used to go. But sometimes we'd run into. It was fantastic. We'd run into people who were religiously anti-religious. You understand? It was a difficult problem. Yeah, it was a big problem. So we're there, and I was with my first wife, may she rest in peace. And we usually did fine. We usually did great, you know. But sometimes, you know, they'd really get on a thing. It's really hard, you know. It's hard to get anything going. So they keep going to this. 1 second. Says, how come your wife can't be a rabbi? How come your wife can't be a rabbi? Could she also be the rabbi? Why can't your wife be a rabbi? No, we explain them over and over and over again. Not bad, you know, but we're having a little hard time. They're really hot on this thing. Women's lib was very big then, you know, very gigantic. It was the whole life, you know. Hey, why can't you be a rabbi? Why can't you? So finally, about 3/4 of the way into the meal, they go, look, why can't you be a rabbi? Why can't you also be a rabbi? So my first wife, God bless her, may she rest in peace, a blessed memory. She looks, she says, okay, listen, you want to know the truth? She says, what you call a rabbi, she said, I am a rabbi. She said, I am. What you call a rabbi, I am a rabbi. That's not a problem. What you consider a rabbi, I am a rabbi. Now the thing is, so the thing over here is like this. What? It's not yours. If you just open it or if you just dig it, I don't care what it's yours. You own the thing. That's all. That as far as we're concerned, you own it. So even what you don't own, even the thing you don't own, you own. Now here's the trick. Which one is which? Which one is the primary drasha and which one is not? And we're going to see in a minute an argument between Tanoim. So it could be that everybody agrees to one drasha, Baal Habor. Everyone agrees if you own the pit, you're going to be obligated. The only question will be, what if you don't own it? Okay, that's the other way. Another way to look is, no, listen. It says, look, if you just merely dig the thing, it's yours. Okay, so I know for sure what you don't own is for sure you're obligated. Question is, what about one that you actually own? And what about one that you actually own? Okay, so now that's the main trick. You think of that, you're going to see it's going to be much easier to remember what's going on because this can happen again and again for a bunch of lines. Okay, now let's read. We learned the following machlokes. Okay, in a brisa. Tanaraban, we learned in a brisa. If somebody digs a pit in the private domain, and the opening is in the public domain, skip the parentheses, okay, and since people fall into it, the person is obligated. Zehu bor amar b'Torah, and that's the bor that was dug in the public domain. That's the bor that the Torah was speaking about. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. That's what Rabbi Yishmael said. Rabbi Kiva challenged him. He says, no. Hifke reshusov lefke boro. No, it's when a person dug a pit in his domain and he abandoned to the public domain the area around the entrance, but he kept the hole for himself. Zeu bar amar b'Torah. That's the bor. He actually owns the pit. The hole is his. That's the pit of the Torah. My time. Okay, pardon me. That's the pit of the Torah. Now we have to. It's enigmatic. What are they talking about? What is the argument? We're going to have two opinions in the Amoraim. What is the argument in the Tanaim? And it's going to be what I just told you, the trick that I just told you. Now it says Amar Rabba. Rabba says, listen, I'm going to explain to you something. He says, Bar b'rshus harabim. a pit that's in the public domain, kuli amalo pligi de mechayev. That everybody knows is obligated. Why? Because of the drasha that I told you. Everybody agrees to this drasha. My time. Amar the pasuk said, if you open the pit or if you dig the pit, you're going to have to pay. If a guy's obligated for merely uncovering, opening, you just took the lid off, you're obligated. You didn't do anything. You're obligated. I'll create a local. Certainly, if you dug the darn thing, you're going to be obligated. Ella, so why you have to tell me such a thing? Why speak in such a repetitious fashion? The answer is that the obligation, Hashem is teaching us that the obligation for paying for a pit is what? Is for the act of bringing it about. It's for the uncovering, for the opening, and that you don't own anything. It's not your thing. The main thing is what? If you do it, you do it. You're the owner. You don't have to own anything physically. You did the deed. You're obligated. Lo nechleku. So where's the arguments? Everybody, Bain Rabbi Yishmael, Bain Rabbi Akiva, everybody agrees what? A pit that's unowned in the public domain. Everybody knows. Okay, that's what it says. But where's the argument? Barber Shuso. The argument is what? What if he actually owns the pit? Rabbi Akiva Savar Barber Shuso Namichai. Rabbi Akiva says, in addition to the obvious, a public domain pit, even one that's in private, he's also chayiv. Why? Because of the second drasha, Baal Habor Yisha, Baal Habor. The owner of the pit shall pay. So what? Do you see a pit that's owned? A pit that's owned, you have to pay. Okay, but Bar Disley Balim was talking about also a pit that has owners, Kam Rahmana. So you see, Rabbi Akiva says, in addition to pit that doesn't have owners, Bala Bar means what? Even a pit that does have owners. So you're obligated on both. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, he says, no, you're only obligated on an ownerless pit. Okay, why? What do you do with the word? You're not own pit. You're not obligated. What is Baal Habor? What is the word? What Baal? Okay, Baal. Okay, and what Baal Hatakolam? He says when it says what that owner, it doesn't mean you own the physical property. It means you are the owner, the causer. You're the one who's in charge of the obstacle, and that's exactly what he says. So you see, so therefore, what everybody understands what that owner of the pit. The only thing is what that Rabbi Akiva learns. Baal Habor really means literally the owner of the property, and Rabbi Shmuel says, no, that's not what it means. It just means what? It just means you're the cause. You're the cause, right? Elamiza Barma B'Torah Dekam Rabbi Akiva. Now. I can. Okay, now the only thing is like this. I can understand clearly when Rabbi Yishmael says this is the pit. Since Rabbi Yishmael was only an unowned pit in the public domain, is what you're obligated. I understand why he made the emphasis. So this is the pit that the Torah is talking about, because this is not one that you own. Okay, but the only thing is what? But Ella, myself, Barma, what am I going to do with Rabbi Akiva? Since he holds up what? Both the unowned one and the owned one are both obligated. Why do he say this is the one? He holds both of them. Rabbi Yishmael said this and only this. What does he say both? He says, he meant to say the pit that it began talking about paying was a pit that was owned. Because it said what? Baal Habor Yisham, the owner of the pit. So when it talked about the obligation, this is the one that it was talking about when it spoke about the exact obligation, but really what? Both of them are obligated. Rabbi Yosef. Now that was the opinion of what of Rabbah. So everybody, according to Rabbah, everybody agrees to the unowned and what? That's a machlokas by the owned. Rabbi Yosef Amai says no, that's not the argument. But Barber should say Yachid Kulim the opposite way. One that's owned, that's in the private domain. The private domain, everybody agrees is obligated. Everybody's going to agree to the main drush of what? Of Baal Habor, the owner. My time of Baal Habor Rachmana, because the pasuk said what? The owner of the bar. The bar Disley Bali Maskita. We're talking about a bar that has owners. Where's the whole argument between them? But Barber Shusarabim, that was the argument. Rabbi Shmuel Sabar, what Rabbi Shmuel was Barber Shusarabim, not Michayev Lo. Rabbi Shmuel holds what? That even not only the one in the private domain, even the public domain is obligated to see because it's written. If you'll open it, or if you'll uncover it, or if you'll dig it. If you're merely uncovering it, you're obligated. I'll clear local. She can't certainly what for digging it. Ella, what's the whole point of speaking so verbosely? Ella, the answer is what? That the obligation is for the mere act of bringing about the obstacle. Where you dig it, you open it. What's the difference? Okay, and therefore what? So if that's true. Okay, if that's true, that's the drasha. So then, how come Rabbi Akiva doesn't agree also that what? That one that's unknown, you should say what? The extra language means that even if you don't own it, you're obligated as long as you brought it about. I've Rabbi Akiva. So new, what are you going to do with Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva, how can Rabbi Akiva hold that the unknown one is not obligated? Mitzvah Chichi says, I'll tell you why. Because that extra, what you call the verbose extra language, is not extra. It's necessary to teach me a very important principle. Because of Rahmana, what is that? I'm going to say it outside, I'm going to read it inside, because I might think, listen, you know when I said, you know when it's good enough to cover it up. If you uncovered it, no, you have to cover it. You have to cover it. But if you dug it, it's not going to be good enough. You have to fill it in. Okay, you have to fill it in. I might think when you dug it, you can't be so lenient as just to what as just to cover it. Or I might think, when you're obligated, when you're obligated, or the other way. He says, when you're allowed to, when you're obligated, if you dug it. But if you just uncovered it, you didn't do anything. Maybe you're not obligated at all. You don't have to do anything. You have no. So therefore, what each extra language is there not to teach me that the payment is because I brought about the obstacle. Come to teach me a leniency and what and a stringency. Let's read it inside. He says, I need it. Because of Rahmana ki yiftach only if you uncover a pit. Because I think what if you merely uncovered it, it's enough to just cover it up again to not be obligated. Korah, but okay, but if you dug it, okay, because it's not going to be good enough to cover it up. At the time, you have to fill it in. Because of Rahmana, if you've written me, what if you dig it? When are you obligated to undo what you did? If you did a real act, okay, you dug a pit and you're obligated to cover it up. If you merely uncovered it to love Maisa, you didn't dig the pit. But you don't even have to bother covering. You're not obligated. Kamash Malan both ways. If you only uncovered it, you're obligated to undo what you did. And even if you dug it, it's enough just to cover it, and you don't have to fill it in. So therefore, what Rabbi Kiva doesn't learn what even if you don't own it, you're obligated because you dug it. He learns that those words are necessary. Okay, so yeah. According to Kiva, yes. Okay, now. Keep going. You're gonna see. I velamize that bar now. I can understand now. According to what you said now everybody agrees that a pit in that the own pit in the private domain is obligated. And it's only argument about the public one. Mishmael says yes, and Rabbi Kiva says no. So I understand. Okay, I can understand what Rabbi Kiva said. Why he said this is the pit, because he said this and only the one in the private domain. But now, what's Rabbi Shmuel saying? This is it. He holds what? He holds both in the private domain and in the public domain. What do you say? This is the bar that's in the Torah. What was he saying? He's saying Zeu bar shapasabah kasam clean zaken. This is the bar. What was talking about. It's talking about this is the pit. The one in the private domain is the an ox. This is the probably since he says both. Probably. Yeah. Why does it say this? This is the one when it first talked about the damage taking place. That's the one it was talking about here because it said it says when you open or when you uncover or when you dig and an ox or a donkey fell in, and therefore you tell me, according to Yishmael, and that's what we see the bar in the public domain. So that's the one when it first talked about the damage I was talking about. Okay, good. So essentially the argument between Rabbah and Rabbi Yosef is what was the key drasha that everybody agreed to. That's really what it comes. That's the trick. What's the key drasha? Is the key drasha that everybody agrees? That everybody agrees, like no, it's Rabbi Yosef, so everybody agrees to the drasha. Baal, he's the owner, so definitely an owned one is in. The question is, unowned one in or out. Okay, that's the machlokas. And according to Rabbah, everybody agrees to kiyichra. What the main thing is, what an unowned one is certainly in. The question is, what about an owned one? Yeah. Hold. Okay, let's see. But before you, okay. Let's see. You're gonna ask me. I want to get the chocolate tiger first. Okay, Macy. Okay, Macy. Hold on. Okay, Macy. Hold on. Macy. Okay, we're going to ask the kasha. Okay, I want to ask on Rabbi Yosef. According to Rabbi Yosef, everybody agrees that the board that's owned in that's owned is higher. Macy Bay, Achover bar b'shusarabim. Didn't we learned in a rice? If you dig a bar in b'shusarabim, and you put the opening in the private domain, Potter, he's exempt. The alpha pisha in a rashal came, even though he wasn't allowed to dig, you're not allowed to make holes under the public domain. If you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to dig the stuff on the public domain. But you still what? But he's still exempt because what? Because the entranceway is in his property. Achover bar shichan maras b'shusayachid. The guy dug pits or ditches or chambers. So we'll see underneath, in a private domain. But he put the opening in the public domain. Chayiv, he's obligated. And what if a guy dug holes in a Rishus Yachid that's right next to the Rishus Rabin? Could go in Elu, Hachofrin Lushin, like people who dig. Then why are they digging a pit right next to the Rishus? Because they're trying to make foundations for the walls of the house. Okay, to make foundations. Part of you're exempt because the person has a right to dig foundations even right next to the Rishus Rabin for his own property. Hi, Rabbi Yossi, Yehuda Mechayev, he says no. Even if you dig it, okay, even if you dug it for a foundation, you're still obligated. So you have to make a partition of 10, or until you at least make it you distance yourself from the public domain for. But the beginning holds what? As long as you have rishus, you're okay, even if it's right next to the rishus around. Okay, now we said, let's take a look at what we said. In the end, we said it sounds like what? That timer, what's the only reason why, okay, you're allowed to make a pit in the private domain next to the public? Okay, time of dilution because you did it to make foundations. Halavlution, but if it wasn't for foundations, Chayiv, you're obligated. Money. 1 second, that's a pit completely what in the private domain. I own the whole, I own everything. Okay, it happens to be next to the public domain. Who is that? Who's that? Who's that according to? Because first you told me what? Okay, who is the advice following? In the ratio, you told me what? That you told me that a pit that I dug in my own domain was exempt. And now you're telling me what? That if it wasn't for foundations, okay, I'm obligated. Bishlam Rabba, that's all fine according to Rabba, who holds what? Everybody agrees that the public one is obligated. Reisha Rabbi Shmuel, even though it's going to be hard, but we're going to say what? The Reisha, forget about whether we like it or not. Okay, but what? At least it makes sense. The beginning that says what? That a whole in his private domain is not obligated. That's Rabbi Shmuel. That's fine. Okay, the Seifa and the Seifa Rabbi Kiva, and the Seifa is Rabbi Kiva, who holds what? That a hole in the private domain is obligated. El Rabbi Yosef, okay, but according to Rabbi Yosef, who says what? According to Rabbi Yosef, who says everybody agrees everybody agrees that the private domain is obligated. Bishlam Seifa, I understand the end. The end said what? A hole that wasn't for foundations, you're obligated because a hole in the private domain is obligated. El Arabia, with the beginning that said what? That a hole in that the private domain is exempt. Mani, who's it according to? Lower Rishmo, lower Akiva, because according to Yosef, everyone agrees that a whole of the private domain is obligated. So how did you exempt it? Rav Yosef says, don't worry. He says, Kula Divya Kol. He says, what? The whole brisa is really everybody, according to me. Everybody. But Reisha, okay, what do you mean? What is the reason why that in the beginning that he was exempted for a whole in the private domain? So Hifka lo Rishusav lo Boro. I'll tell you why, because he didn't give away anything. So here, if not only is the pit here, but nobody has access. So he didn't give. What are you doing on my property? He didn't give away access to the hole. Nobody has the right to be falling in there. Okay, and he says what? So therefore what? But and that's why. So the guy falls in is exempt. Okay, and therefore he's exempt. Okay, and therefore he's exempt. Amra Avashi, Hashta du Kimta Rabbi Yosef L'Divya Kol. Now that you're able to make a trick like that and say the according to Rabbi Yosef, the brisa follows everybody. The Rabbah also according to Rabbah holds everybody agrees to the public domain. Namilo Tokba Katanoi. We don't even have to give the hard pressed answer that we gave before that the beginning is one Tana and the beginning is another Tana, but rather what? Midareisha Rabbi Shmuel. If the opening is Rabbi Shmuel, who held what that a private domain is exempt. Seifa Nami Rishon, also the Seifa is Rabbi Shmuel. 1 second. Then how come when it's not for foundations you're obligated? According to Rabbi Shmuel, you're not obligated at all on a private domain. The time of Delushan, Halav Lushan Chayiv. He says, how can you tell me what that if it's not for foundation you're obligated? The answer I hold it that public domain is not obligated. The answer is not. It wasn't a simple case. It was really a case where he edged into. It wasn't completely in the private domain. He really went into the public domain, and therefore, really, it's really what looks like a bar in the private domain is really a bar in the public domain. That bar in the public domain, but probably because you just went in a little because it's not the real open. Just went in a drop. Maybe you consider right. Even a little bit. It's already called public. You would think maybe not, but it's good. Macy, 1 second. Let me ask you a kasha to Rav Yosef, who said what? That everybody agrees to the private domain, and the only question is the public. Macy, we learned in a brisa. Hachofer bar a guy dug a bar in the private domain, and he opened it into the public domain. Chayav, he's obligated. But if he dug it in the private domain next to the Rishus Rabbi, he's exempt. Bishlam the Rabbah. Okay, it all makes sense according to Rabbah. Okay, Rabbah who says what? That everybody agrees to the public and the argument the private. Kule Rishmoli, the whole thing is Rabbi Shmuel who holds what the private is, that public is obligated and private is not. El Rabbi Yosef, according to Rabbi Yosef, who holds what? That there's an argument about private Bishlam Maresh. I understand the beginning, Rabbi Shmuel. That's Rabbi Shmuel holds what? That a public domain is obligated. El Sefer, but where it says that the bor in the private domain is not obligated. Money. Who's that? Lo Rishon Kiva. You hold what? That everybody agrees to the private domain. So don't worry, Rav Yosef will tell you the okay, really what? The safe is really talking where he dug it for foundations, and therefore what? For Divrei Kol, and everybody agrees. If you dug it for foundations, it is okay. You're not obligated. Once you have your shows. Tana Rabbanim, we learn Chafar Upasach Umasha Rabbim. The guy dug a bore and opened a bore in the public domain, and he gave it. Now, I want to say to you, what's people digging all these holes for? I just want to give you a little reality. Why are people? What are they nuts? Everybody's walking away. They got nothing to do with it's time. You're digging holes. So if you live a little bit in agrarian society, you'll understand. Here, you have it's all about water. What is that? Well, you got an animal. No, you're on the run. You're selling your wares. Oh, your animal's dying of thirst over there. You got to feed it. No, you got to get a little water. What do you do? What are you walking around with a tub? You think you got a tub, a trough? You say you dig a hole, and you put the water to let the animal drink, for example. So people, we dig holes generally for what? For water generally. Again, it's not the only thing. For water, water. Either to put water into it, to let the rain collect in it. That's what it's for. So now we're going to learn what happens if a guy wants to do a big mitzvah. Here, the community always needs water holes. We all need water. So what happens? The guy wants to do a mitzvah. He's going to dig a hole for the water and give it away. So he says, the guy dug a hole and opened it, and he gave it to the rabbin. He said, listen, he says, I love you guys. This is for you. Let the water go in, and you can use it putter. He's exempt. Why? Because that was it's a hole, but he gave it to the public. The public needs it, and they want it. But if he did the same thing, but he didn't give it over, then he's obligated. That's his bar. He's obligated. But he was a famous tzaddik who used to, because the people, everybody, Jews had to come up to be Ola Rego, Yerushalayim, he would make it that they always dug water containers for them to benefit from. So when he would dig it and open it up, he donated it to the public. And the rabbis heard about this wonderful thing that the Amru Kim Zeh says, wow, this guy fulfilled this mitzvah. He says, halacha zu, but too low. But that's the only mitzvah he didn't do any other mitzvahs. Really, what? Halacha zu. Now he did do other mitzvahs, but even this one he did. Tana Rabbanan, this is a frightening thing I'm going to explain it. He says, this famous tzaddik, he used to dig these holes. His daughter fell into a big cistern of water. And they came and they told it to Chanina Mendoza. She fell into the water. Okay, Shari showed her the first hour when a person, you maybe knew who she said. Amarlin says, Shalom, don't worry, she's okay. Shnia, the second hour when it gets a little more dangerous, Amarlin, Shalom, don't worry, she's okay. Says she's okay. He says, Shlishis, when they told her still the third hour, and she hasn't reappeared, Amarlin, he told them also, don't worry, she must be out of it. She without looking, he knew that she's out. Amrullah, and they went there when they found her. And when Mela said, "Who got you out?" Amrullah, she said, "You know what happened? All of a sudden, there shows up a male sheep with Zokin Echad Manigo, and there's an old man leading it." Amrullah, who was that? That was Avram with the sheep from Yitzhak. Amrullah, so they said to her, he says, "Navi Ato, wow, you're a Navi. You're a Navi." This is very important what I'm explaining. Very important. The shining rabbi with the glimmering eyes and the aura. Such a Navi, a tzaddik. He said, Amar said, stop it. Stop all the games over here. Lo Navi Anochi, I'm not a prophet. Lo Ben Navi, I'm not the son of a prophet Anochi. Elakach Amarti. It was pure svara. I used my head. I didn't do magic and mystically. Let me meditate. I can see it. It must be a mirror. No, I use my head. Kachamarti, Domashot Tzaddik Mitzvah, a thing with this tzaddik put in such pain to take care of the rabbin. He says, Yikosher Bozar, his daughter's not going to be killed. This guy provides water to the rabbin. His daughter's not going to die in water. It's a svara. Half the things you see by the holy tzaddik had a vision. He had a vision. He saw. That's not what happened. The guy knew a formula from the Torah. He knew a formula from the Torah, or he used his seichel. He knew. What are you talking about? And also, that's another pit. Dude, that would have been good for you. But I'm saying, but my point is, both sides, half of the thing people think are magic is because the rabbi understood the Torah, he knew the formula, and he applied the rules. He applied the rules. Stop turning everything into a fairy tale and magic. Yeah.
Why did they go down there and save it right in the first hour?
They couldn't find.
Why-
I think they couldn't
It's
find.
not a miracle.
They didn't know where she was.
He
They didn't know where
was-
she-
they don't-
they
he
didn't
wasn't-
know where
he
she was.
wasn't anywhere near
They
it.
didn't know where she was. He was nowhere near, but they couldn't get her. They couldn't get her. Now, listen to this. Now, this is very important. Both say this is also important. I want to explain. There's also this next part also misunderstood. Keep reading. Amar Avacha, even though he was such a great tzaddik, incredible tzaddik, and his daughter was protected, Afal became nevertheless Meis Beno B'tzama. His son died from thirst. Well, now, what's the sad trick? What's the sad trick? What does it mean? All right, 1 second. You're right. It's impossible that his child would die from the very mitzvah that he did, but from the lack of it, that is not protected. His son's also not going to die in water. But if it was a decree upon him, it would have been protected. But to not have water, that's a different story. It works now. Shenemar, as it says, and why is that? What's Hashem doing now? I want to explain this principle because we have a rule. You would think, you have a rule. Shenemar usviva of nisar meod. If the pasuk, if you translate it simply, means around Hashem is very stormy, and around the area of God, it's very stormy. It's very scary. Yeah, he says. But it's a pun because that word usually a Sarah is like with a samach. Sarah means what? It's very stormy. But here it's written with a sin, like what? Like hair. So if I'm going to translate around God, it's very hairy. What does that mean? Okay, in English it also works, but it's the same. It also works like yellow. Hashem is exacting, stringent with those who are close to him. The people who are very close to him, down to a hair's breadth. He judges the tzaddikim more strictly than what? Than everybody else. Okay. Number one. Oh, wait. Give me 1 second. Give me a second. I'm going to explain. Rabbi Nechunya said from here. The same principle from a different pasuk. It says, El Naretz, God is frightening. But so Kedoshim Rabbah in the meeting of the great holy meeting, the Norah Kol Sivav, and he's frightening. He's odd, scary. Everyone that's around him, even the tzaddikim. Now, Rabbosai, I know in the street, if you ask anybody, why is Hashem over there? Oh, because they should know better. Let me ask you a question. You got a business, you got customers. You got a customer for 500 a year, a customer for 1,000, a customer for 10,000, a customer for 1 million a year. He says, the customer who gives you $1 million business a year, he comes in, he sees you, he comes once a year. So, excuse me, before you go, that's $1 for the phone call that you used. Are you nuts? The guy who gives you $1 million, you're charging for the phone. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the guy who's the biggest tzaddik, you're going to be strict with him? What are you talking about? The guy who gives you the most business, you're going to be strict with him? Does it make sense to you? He gives you the most business. Hashem, this is the guy who does the most for you. You're going to be strict with him. What's the answer? And I'm going to tell you, it's frightening. I'll tell you that. It's frightening. I'm going to tell you the answer. Because it depends, because some people have sensitivity and some people don't. And this is a scary point. I'm going to tell you a quick story you'll understand. When my child was little, so I used to take her in my arms, to go shopping. Yeah, my little girl, when she was little, she's a grown woman now. I used to carry her in my arms to go shopping. And she was a bright girl. So I came to a certain shop, which was so small. And if I put her down on the floor, she saw nothing except for knees. Yes, it was boring for a little girl. But so I held her, and it was interesting, but I was getting tired. Now, we had a rule in the house. No kid could ever sit on a table. A table is mizbeach. You don't sit on a table. Every kid knew from the time they're babies. No kid would sit on a table. Knew there was a counter in the store. You understand? There was shotnays. There's a counter in the store. So I figured maybe I'll sit on the counter. I said, no, I never let her sit on the table. But I'm a grown man. I make chilukim. I said, no, that's not a table. That's the counter, for the shop. It's not a problem. Finally, I said, yeah, but the difference. Finally, I was so tired. I begin to lower her down, and as her little, she touches the counter. She looks up. She says, Abba, it's a mizbeach. I said, you're right. I started laughing. I picked it up, and there was a lady there who was much older than me at the time. She looks at me. She says, I just raised one like that. You can never be tired. She says to me. What's the answer? What's the answer here? If the kid understands, you can't do that. The kid knows that's a mizbech. No, you can't play tricks, and that's the answer here. By the guy who's less, he doesn't see God very well. Until this guy sees a whole mountain lifted up, there's no God in the world. You understand? But down to every detail, I didn't see God in every detail like a tzaddik does. But the tzaddik, who every nakuda, every atom, every electron, every detail, he sees God. If he doesn't see a response in the tiniest place, there's no God. I hope I'm communicating. The tzaddik demands it. The tzaddik himself sees what, no, hey, Mizbeach over here. If he doesn't see the response from God, as if there is no God. What do you think? Hashem's going to be mean to the tzaddikim? Are you crazy? Are you nuts? He gives you $1 million business. You're going to charge him for a phone call. It's ridiculous. That's keneged haseichel. That's keneged haseichel. That's keneged haseichel. The answer is what? The tzaddik says, look, he sees God down to the finest detail. Hashem has to respond to him according to the finest detail. When my own teacher, when I was young, and I finally became a Talmud to somebody, and I pressed him hard on a chazal. I remember when it was. Pressed him hard on a chazal, Rabbi Yochanan ben Shlachis, and he said to me, why? It's a famous argument. We're going to come to it. He said, why are you asking me about this? I said, because that's what I'm up to. It wasn't, I never did that. That's what I'm up to. He said, okay. And when we finished, you know what he said to me? He said, from now on, I said, I'm going to have to treat you differently. From now on, I have to treat you differently. When he saw, you understand what I'm talking about, well, he said, I have to treat you differently. When you see that a person has the sensitivity, if you don't respond, there's no God. There's no God. That's I hope you communicate. The tzaddik has to see it. Okay, it's frightening. It's frightening, but the tzaddik has to see it.
Plus, the shot is that he's going to get more star in the future.
That's for sure. For sure. That's for sure. No. But that's not why. Why should he be more stringent than the other people? He's better. Give him a break for crying out loud. This guy gave you everything. You can solve that. You're God. What are you stuck with rules? God's dictated by some rule. Give him here, give him there, give him everywhere, give him this world, give him the next world, give him everything. What do you care? No, give him everything. Okay, no. God's not stuck. Rabbi Chanina says, listen to this. Yeah. I'll explain. Rabbi Chanina says, anybody as Hashem says that Hashem forgoes sin, is if he tells people, not if he says it to himself. If a guy tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgoes sin, okay, his life is going to be hefker. Why? He's going to be abandoned to damage. Why? Because he's causing other people to not do the mitzvahs. He's telling them it's okay to do aveiros. Shenemar, as it says, Hashem never lets go. Hatzur Tomim Palo. Hashem is a perfect. He called Ruach HaMishpah. All his ways are judgment. Okay, what's the pasuk that says Erech Hapayim? When Hashem says long, Hashem is long suffering. Hashem holds on; He doesn't bring punishment right away. So the word would be long of face. But what do you mean long of faces? So it must be there's two delays, not one delay. Why should be Erech Haf should be Hashem delays punishment? Why Erech Hapayim? He's two faces long. What does that mean? So there's two different delays. Erech Hapayim l'tzadikim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds back the reward for the tzaddikim till the world to come, which they'll benefit. Okay, Rishoyim and HaKadosh Baruch Hu holds back the punishment of Rishoyim till later, Rahman, which is worse for them. He holds back the punishment of tzaddikim till later because it's better for them. He holds back the punishment of Rishoyim, which generally is worse for them, but could also be better for them. It could also be better. Why? Because if they're not punished, they live, they can still do teshuvah. So it's not bad. Tana Rabbanan, we learn, a person shouldn't clear the stones from his private domain into public domain. Don't throw your stones from your field into the public domain. There was a certain guy who was clearing the stones from his private property to the public property. A certain saintly man found him, and Amarlo, he said to him something which seemed absolutely nonsensical. He said to the guy, Reiko, you Russia, how come you're throwing stones out of a domain that doesn't belong to you? What do you mean it did belong to you? So what do you mean? Why are you throwing stones from a domain that doesn't belong to you? Okay, to your domain, which is a public domain. So the opposite. Okay, love. So the guy laughed at him. It was nothing. It made no sense. He ridiculed him. The Yomim Nitzach, when a few days, sometime later, what happened? Rachmanas Nitzach the said there, they got to sell his field. And he was walking in the public domain. And he trapped on those, or he stepped on the very stones that he threw out. Amar, he said, Yafa, Amar Lios, Chassid, that saintly person spoke to me properly, but why are you throwing from the domain that's not yours to one that's yours? Because the domain, even if you own it, one day, it could not be yours, you might not sell it. But the public domain is always going to be what? Is always going to be yours. You're throwing for what one day may not be yours, and one day you're going to be walking in the public domain, which is also just like it's everybody's, but it's also yours, and you tripped on it. The Bali Musa used to sing. I'm saying it's a faster episode. The Bali Musa used to sing this. Listen to this. They used to sing Al Totzar Tzoras Mochor. Don't feel the pain of tomorrow. Al Totzar Tzoras Mochor. Don't feel the pain of tomorrow. Shema Tavo Mochavenenu. Maybe tomorrow's going to come. You're not even going to be here. You're not even going to be here. Came out what? You were taking pains. You were crying. Olam Shena Shalom. World that was never yours. What are you talking? You're going to be there. What are you crying about? Okay. Says the Mishnah, a guy dug a pit in the public domain, and the shor chamor fell in. Chayev, he's obligated. Echad a bor. Okay, bor. Now we're going to say all different shapes. We're going to see in a minute, and we're going to have a reason why. All different shapes are going to be obligated under the law of a pit. Echad a bor, a round hole in the ground. Okay, umaora, a square hole in the ground that has a covering on it but has an opening. It's covered, but it has an opening. So it's like a room with an opening on top. Charitzin, okay, what are they? Those are also square holes, okay, square holes like a room, but they're not covered. Then Eitzin, and what are Eitzin? Those are an inverted cone. Imagine a cone upside down. So it's a hole in the ground that's wider at the top and narrow at the bottom. Chayiv. All those cases are chayiv. In Cain, if all those different shapes are obligated. Lama nemar bor. So why did the Torah specify what? A round hole in the ground that's open. Ma bor because we use it as a paradigm. Just like a round hole in the ground that it can kill. Because remember, it's a case where it killed the animal. Okay, that's 10 deep. Off kol says, tell me what? Everything that shares that quality, everything that has the 10 tefach, asor tefachim, everything, all the different shapes, as long as they have 10 tefachim and they're able to kill, those are the ones that are obligated. But if they would be less than 10 tefachim deep, 10 ambres, and an ox or a donkey fell in and it died, Potter, it's exempt. Okay, he's exempt on death. Being huzak, but if it's damaged, okay, you're obligated. We'll deal more specifically with how we derive everything. Now, Amar Rav. Now, this is a famous argument and also incredible. What is the damage of the pit? Is the damage of the pit when you open it up, it's foul air in there? Is that what damages? And even when an animal's leg is broken, it's still a problem. What gets it sick, so to speak, or makes it lose everything is really the bad air. Or is it either? Could it be the blow and also what and either or the bad air? Is it only bad air or the blow or the bad air or only the bad air and not the blow? Amar Rav Torah. The pit that the Torah obligated was only for the bad air, below the chaboto, and not for the bang. So if we'll see a case where there's only a bang, that pit will not be obligated according to Rav. Alma Kosabar, we see what chaboto karkolobus. Rav holds what? Okay, the maskil. He holds what? That if it got killed by a bang, you're not obligated for that. Why is that? Because that ground was always there. You dug a hole, the ground was there before. You didn't do anything. What do you want from my life? Ushmuel Amar said no. Lahavlo, okay, no, you're right. It's not you're obligated for the bad air damaging the one that fell in. All the more so for the bang. Being Tomar, and if you'll tell me lachabato or matora, lo lahavlo, no. The Torah only was obligating what? When you did it, the thing that you brought about that you made the bang, lo lahavlo, not for the bad air. Torah Ida, it's not true. He says it's definitely both. Why? Because the Torah said al bor. The Torah said what? A pit, and it didn't differentiate. Even if you had clumps of wool on the bottom, so it was a cushion. So you dig a pit, and it can't possibly get hurt by the blow. If it's lined with wool padding, it doesn't matter. You're still obligated. So it must be what? It's not only the blow, but even what? Even the bad air. So what's the argument? Where's the practical difference? The answer is, look, according to Rav, if there's no case of bad air, you can't be obligated. Here's why. A person made a mound in the public domain, you made a 10 high mound. So what? If it falls off, you have what? The blow, but there's no bad air. L'Rav agova l'mechayev. So according to Rav, since there's no bad air, you can't be obligated for damage from a mound. L'Shmuel agova l'mechayev, because Shmuel, you're not only obligated with this bad air, but even on a mound where the only damage comes from the blow, you're obligated. My time at the Rav. What is the reasoning of Rav from the Torah? We already said his reasoning. We already said his svara. But what did he see in the Torah that supports him? Because the pasuk says v'nafal. Now we're not used to this, but that language of falling on the normal way for an animal to fall is nose first. It falls in from it's walking forward, and it falls in with its nose down, okay, on its face, okay, and therefore what? So you see that, so okay, so only when since it has to fall in that way, it must be what the foul air is what's doing it. Shmuel is saying what the nafal koldu mashmi. He says he doesn't learn the word of the feeling. He doesn't learn that it's necessarily one particular way. Well, backwards, forward, it doesn't make a difference. It makes no difference. He says the language doesn't really push me. Inkain lamanem bar. Now let's go back to our Mishnah. Inkain lamanem bar. The Mishnah said, listen, since really what all kinds of shapes of holes are obligated. Why did the Torah specify bor? We got a lot of words for holes. Ma bor sheish bo kedei lamas hasor tvachim. We said what? Just like a pit has enough to kill because it's 10 deep. Of course, sheish bo kedei lamas hasor tvachim. Everybody that's able to kill 10 deep. Bishlam of the Shmuel. That makes sense according to Shmuel, who says what? It's whether the bang, okay, or whether it's the blow. Af kol. So why did it say af kol? That's an extra language. You're coming to include a case that what? Kol comes to include a case that wasn't written, even another case that you thought might not be included, the Tuyugoba. So according to Shmuel, it's coming to tell me the case where there's a mound, where there's only a blow and there's no bad air. Okay, but according to Rav, who holds it's only air, what case could it possibly come to include? The answer is like it's coming to include uncovered ditches and inverted cones. Okay, why? What are you talking about? Why? Because you might have thought there that there's that about the air. What's it mean? What do you mean it's coming to include it? It says it explicitly those cases. Ditches, the uncovered chamber. Pardon me, the uncovered chamber. If I didn't cancel the uncovered chamber and the inverted cone. The answer is what? He says, you're right, it said it, but Tani was anticipating it, it taught it, and then it said it out explicitly. In other words, he's saying what's indicated or alluded to is not necessary. We don't have to look at it as necessary, as an unnecessary repetition. Vahani Kula, 1 second. He says, now we're going to explain everything. Now, this is either according to Rav or even according to Shmuel, when there's a no blow problem. Okay, Vahani Kulu, Diktani, Lamali, okay. All these ones, why do you have to teach me so many cases? Ditana bar, had you told me a round hole, Evamina bar, Asar, who display habla. I might have thought the banner is only in an open round pit that's 10. Mishum the cotton kricha. Why? Because it's small and round. Aval shiach. Okay, when you're going to come to what? Which is a ditch, which is long, okay, it's going to have more air. Even if it's 10 deep, you still won't have bad air. Coming to no, even there, as long as it's 10, it has bad air. He told me a ditch. I'd say what? I say what? The ditch. You know why it has bad air? Because why? Because it's narrow. But when you have a chamber which is square and big, let's be honest, even if it's 10 deep, I say there's no bad air. You told me the chamber that's covered, why? Pardon me, why? Because it has a covering on it. But a chamber that's uncovered, okay, and square, which is not covered, I would say what? I said there's no bad air. Had you told me charitzin, what? An uncovered square chamber, it has bad air. It's only there when there's 10 deep, it has bad air. Because it's not wider at the top than it is at the bottom. When it comes to what? The inverted cone, the where it's more wide at the top than it is to the bottom. I say, even if it's 10, you don't have bad air because it's very wide at the top. Kamash tells me, nope, even there's bad air with 10. I'll both say thank you very much. Shiva, thank you for the daf, and have a wonderful day. And a good job.
I think this
Yeah.
and you see that Hamas put coolant, bands and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard job, right? On opening somebody's letter.
Yes.
That letter is open
Yeah.
and you read it.
Scott, thank you. Yes, I'm not, we have to look in the Lashon. It's a Lashon, really not a Lashon. You look at so many people saying, like, somebody comes around.
Behind the counter.
Starting.
You knew where they were.
Check
You knew where they were.
I know where they were.
Yesterday. They list all the times.
It's here.
Ah,
Might not
yeah.
allow
No, it's in the basement.
Legal reports. Constitutional law.
Oh, my.
So they wanted all these US reports.
Wow.
Those unfortunately were on
Technical stuff, huh?
six staff. Yeah, the others didn't know there was US reports and legal reports.
They didn't know, they didn't know.
Yeah, on the back it said US, so it said NY, that was too much for them. I got the year and
I hope these weren't, attorney, law school students. I hope
no,
not.
it was a business school.
Oh, even that. Oh, my God.
Now that was all on computer.
Right. That's right. That's true. You open up the document.
It's all on computer.
Ay, ay. Rabbi,